Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Robmotive. So let's talk about tires, or maybe tire and wheel setup on the new Toyota Tacoma. You know, over on the group, which is 4th generation Toyota Tacoma owners group over on Facebook, check it out, shameless plug. There's always talk about tires. How big of tires can I put on the truck without it rubbing? It is a big concern, and obviously something you want to make sure that you address before you go out and pony up $2 or $3 grand on new wheels and tires and then have a rub. And by the way, a rub to me, or a problem, is anything, any situation where the tires rub. If you've got a rub, you've got tires that don't fit, or at least your setup is not right. So what I've got on my truck, and it's stock, I don't have anything on the suspension. It's set up the way that the truck came. I have a 275/70 R18, you can see there. These are a BF Goodrich K03, which, by the way, I do not recommend, at least the 10-ply tire, E-rated, because they are hard, they are heavy, they will eat your fuel economy, and even worse for me is the ride quality is noticeably diminished, right? Nonetheless, that's what I'm running on my truck. As far as the wheels, I did go with an aftermarket. These are, they're called Spike, and they are American Outlaws. You guys can see right there. They are a plus 25 millimeter offset. That means that I have brought the whole setup, including the tire of course, outside of the fender well. Stock size or stock offset on the new Tacoma is plus 55. So every millimeter you go closer to 0 and then beyond takes that whole setup outside of the truck, if you will, as far as the tires go. Now, sitting here with everything dead on straight, for the most part, you can see the distance I have here, right? It's not huge, but obviously I'm not rubbing anything. And let me tell you, if you're rubbing with the tire set just straight like this, you've got bigger problems, right? In the back, no issues as well. Matter of fact, if you look, it almost appears that everything is like perfectly centered, right? Looks like the same gap here, about the same gap here. Isn't that wild? Never noticed that before. But that's not where it matters. If you're always sitting parked with your tires straight, then you're golden, right? But let's go ahead and start it up, because the problem is, of course, when you turn the wheels. And we're going to do that. Let me go ahead and kick off the sound system. We're going to do that. I'm going to rotate all the way to the, I guess, left or driver's side first. And I've got the wheel cranked as far as it can go, right? Can't go any further left. So let's take a look and see what I've got. Now the truck's probably going to beep at me because I've moved the remote or the fob away from the truck. But looking in the back, you can see how close this is. If you look right here, you can see how close that is to the, I guess, the crash plate, or right here on the edge. And man, I can barely fit my hands in there, right? I mean, my finger goes in, but I'm touching both sides. So it's actually really fairly close. And to be honest, if I was off-roading somewhere and the truck was articulating, I might have some sort of a problem. You would really have to remove this crash plate piece here, which could easily be done. And then I would have plenty of clearance. But so far, and you can see there's no rub marks or anything on mine, so it's not like it's rubbing anything. You would be able to see it. Now, let's go ahead and crank that wheel back the other way. We're going to go all the way to the passenger side, or the right. We'll see how that looks. There we go. We've torqued it as far as we can go. Not the best thing to do for your steering, I don't think, but oh, there, now we're beeping. And you can see, this is all the way to the right. That's how close I am there. Now, a bigger distance, obviously, than where I was. See if I can get the light there for you. on the rear of the tire, but still touching at least my knuckle, both the tire and the inner fender here. Now let's rotate the tire just a little bit to bring this edge down there, of course, as close as it will come to that liner. Never really done this before. I've just never had any issues, so I haven't paid any attention to it. But let's see, first of all, let me make sure I've got it right. Maybe a hair more, excuse me, the other way. There, let's take a look. Okay, that's pretty good. And you can see here, I still have about the same distance. I mean, my knuckle, when it's up against the inner fender here, is touching, and so is the bottom of my finger. So it is relatively close, not as close as what it is in the backside. Now, is that a problem? Well, it depends on what you're doing with your truck. First of all, if I shine the light in there, you can see I don't have any rubbing or marks or anything where that may have impacted the inner fender. So whatever driving I'm doing with this truck, I don't have any issues with rubbing on the inner fender. Of course, nowhere else inside. And one other area we should look at is against the arms up there. Let me go ahead and get the tire straight again, or as close as I can. And let's take a look up top, because the other thing you want to pay attention to is right up across the top here. Make sure that we're not rubbing anything. If I can get a light on it for you. We're not rubbing anything back here, and I have tons of room. I mean, there's about probably 2.5 inches of space, so I'm not rubbing on anything back here, right? Everything is good, no issues, nor should you, because the only time you should really have a problem there is if for some reason you were going higher on the offset, like let's say plus 65, 70, where you're actually moving the wheel in, then you could have troubles. I don't know why anybody would ever do that. I've never seen anybody do that. But just beware when you're out there shopping and the guy behind the counter is telling you what you can and can't have. Come armed with a little bit of knowledge, right? Know that 55 millimeter is the factory offset. If you go less than that towards zero, you're moving out. If you were to go in from there, let's say plus 65, you're moving in. And don't let them sell you something that's obviously going to cause you a problem. And again, in my opinion anyway, any kind of a rub is a setup that doesn't work and doesn't fit. I just want to get on, run through that a little bit. Again, over at the group, we get a lot of questions about this, so I thought I'd address it here too. I didn't know a lot about offset and the way things fit before I got into Tacomas, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there in the same boat. Leave a comment. Let me know what setup you've got, and does it work in every situation? In other words, it doesn't rub at all. I'd be curious to know. Also, if you would, click that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on the web. Bye.